أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. The first thing we always start with, and everyone just say it, is Alhamdulillah. We start by praising Allah, especially as we get to some of the most blessed nights that you will ever experience in your life. And we start by this, understanding that right now, tomorrow, we are about to experience a secret cheat code Allah has put into this world. And if you look at any type of manufacturer, when they create something, sometimes they'll put items in there that no one else knows about. And they'll put secrets in there that only people who do the research would know. The last 10 nights of Ramadan are the secret cheat code Allah has ingrained into this system. Into this world, Allah has put a cheat code in there. And when you look at this, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the gift for us because He created us of what we can really get in these last 10 nights. I'll give you an example of a manufacturer. One time there was a mechanic. This guy was a mechanic for 30 years. He knew cars in and out. And he purchased his vehicle. He knows this vehicle better than anyone. Why? Because he's a mechanic. He fixes it. He takes care of it. He does the maintenance on it. He knows his car. One day he's driving down and the check engine pops up. The worst signs you can see, check engine. So he gets out of his car, it breaks down, he gets out, he opens the hood, and he starts to try to figure out what's wrong with his car. And as he's looking, he goes through all of his diagnostics. He's like, man, I've been a mechanic for 30 years. I know exactly how to fix my car. He feels like he understands it. So he's going through every single checklist, but to no avail. Nothing is working. All of a sudden, a man pulls up behind him. An old man gets out of the car, and he starts to walk to him. And the mechanic is thinking, who's this old man? How is he going to help me at all? So the old man, he makes his way, and he tells him, it looks like you're having some trouble with your car. Can I provide you some help? The mechanic is thinking, what would you be able to offer me that I don't already know? He says, I've been a mechanic 30 years. But he says, you know what? If this old guy wants to try, I'll let him try. So the old man comes. He opens the hood. He looks inside. He goes under the transmission. There's a little switch. He flips the switch that only he knew about. And he comes and he tells the mechanic, go try your car. Man goes. He starts his car, everything works perfectly fine. Check engine, everything is gone. The mechanic is amazed. He said, I've been a mechanic for 30 years. I never knew that button, that switch was even there. How come I never knew this? He says, I've literally been working on, this is my car. I know every in and out of it. How did you know about that button? He said, before you leave me, old man, just tell me, who are you? What's your name? The man looked at him and he smiled. He said, my name is Henry Ford. And I created that car. And what this means is no one knows their product better than the one who made it. They know every secret that they built into the system. They know every single thing that makes this thing tick, what can make it go wrong, what you should put in it, how to maintain it, what to do, what are the secrets in that vehicle. And the same way, we establish that Allah created us, that we have a creator, that it makes sense that this creator would know everything about you. He created you. He knows how to maintain you, what you should avoid, what you should put inside your body, what you shouldn't put in your body, what you should do, what you should spend your time with. He knows it better than the one that's the mechanic of the car. Because us as vehicles, we use our body. We think we know ourselves. We think we know what's good for us, but we're just like that mechanic. We didn't build this body. We don't know all the ins and outs. And so Allah, being the creator, knows what's best for us or what's not good for us. And if you look, this is a great example because any manufacturer, they give an instruction guide. They give an instruction guide that, hey, if you want to maintain this product, do these things and don't do these things. And if you start to run into problem, here's the troubleshooting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His mercy in creating us, gave us the instruction manual. And that's why last week we spent most of the time talking about the Quran. That this is the instruction manual that was sent down to teach you how to use you, how to live your life, how to be in your life, how to live your life. Now, a problem arises. We understand that, okay, maybe He did create us. We understand, okay, this is the instruction manual. But all of us know that when you buy something on Amazon, or you buy something on Wayfair, or you order something, it comes in, and you have to put this bed or this mattress or this thing together. For instance, we order a crib for a newborn. This crib comes in, it's like, okay, how hard can it be? And you open it, it's 1,700 pieces. And you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. You open the instruction manual, it's 600 pages. And you're like, okay, I need an instruction manual for the instruction manual. Because you're like, how am I going to navigate this? How am I going to even start on this? So then nowadays, what they have is the most beautiful thing. You take out your phone, go to the instruction manual, you pull out the QR code. You scan it, and boom, YouTube tutorial. You have someone walking through the instruction guide showing you this is how you use it. And now for us, it's so easy. I can love to watch somebody show me exactly how to use the instruction manual. And Allah, in His wisdom, created us. And He knows what's best for us. And He sent an instruction manual, the Quran. This is what's good for you. This is what's bad for you. This is how you should live your life. But out of His immense mercy, not only did He just leave us with that, He sent us perfect vessels, perfect messengers that came down, and they were the epitome of that instruction manual. They showed us exactly how as a father, how as a brother, how as a son, how as a believer do I live this instruction manual? When I'm tested, when I'm tempted, when I have feelings and I have urges, I have emotions, I have feelings, how am I supposed to listen to this instruction manual? Well, now I have a walking instruction guide. And the way that the Prophet ﷺ was described by his wife, the one who knows him better than anyone, she said, he was a walking Quran, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Here's a walking manual of how you should live your life. How the Creator has created you to be the best version of a human being you could be. And so it is out of God's mercy that He sends prophets that are human beings. They have feelings and temptations and limitations like all of us. That God sends these perfect vessels to show us how are we supposed to implement the Quran and how are we supposed to use it. But then the question comes, when someone comes and claims, I am that prophet. I am that walking vessel. I am your instruction manual on how you should live your life. And there's many people who have claimed to be prophets. How do we know which one's the right one? How do we know that this is coming from that necessary being creator, that is coming with that true message, that true inspiration? How do we know that this is a true prophet? And this is what we're going to cover today. This is what we're going to prove. And in proving this, I have one goal for us, that we start to follow him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because many of us, we claim we believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but if I looked at your life, it would not follow. And as one of the brothers asked me before this class, why are we learning things that we already know? It's a great question. Why are we spending time learning these things? If I'm already saying I'm a Muslim, why am I learning this? And I told him, and this is a good example for us. If I tell you today, I'm a vegan, Azher is a vegan, and I believe the ideology, it makes the most sense, this is the truth, I'm a vegan. And then I go to Chama, and I smash in steaks. And I tell you, no, I'm a vegan though, and I start eating steaks. You would say that your actions don't actually make you believe. You really don't believe in that. You're not a true vegan. You say you're a vegan, but you're not really vegan. And I would say, how dare you claim that? I say it with my tongue, I'm a vegan. You would say your actions don't prove it. And so the reality is, many of us, we claim, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that I believe in one God, and Muhammad ﷺ is his messenger. But if I look into our lives, where is Muhammad? Where's the messenger? Where's his character? Where's his sunnah? Do you believe it? And so the reality is, maybe we don't believe it. So my hope in this is, as we go through the proofs, and as we prove 100% that this had to be a messenger of God, that we submit and say, okay, we will follow whatever he says now. We're not concerned with how does it fit in his time, how does it morally fit in our time, how's his decision, how do we reconcile that, how I feel about him. We have already established this is the messenger of God. Whatever he says, I take it from here. That's my goal out of today, and that's what we'll start with, inshallah. So, Omar, you can pull up the slides. There's my clicker. All right, Bismillah. So this is what we're going to start with today. The first thing is understanding historical facts. And this is good as a Muslim and a non-Muslim, you should understand. There are some things that are our baseline of what we understand about who this man was in the 7th century that came out. The first thing is this historical figure named Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who came around the 7th century. The first point in this is the fact that Muhammad existed. This is more true than the fact that your mother is your mother. We are more certain that this man existed than we are sure that your mom is your mom. Why? How do you know your mom is your mom? Did you do a DNA test? I hope not. I hope you were not in that situation. But most of us, we believe our mother is our mother off of one key proof. It's not scientific proof. It's not empirical proof. It's a proof known as testimony. Your mom, she tells you, hey, I gave you birth on this date, that's your birth date, and this is how much of a pain you were, and I carried you for 9 months. And then your dad comes along and says, yes, I verify that testimony. And then your older sibling comes and said, yeah, you were annoying when you were born. And then your cousins come and they start to verify. And then you have about 5 to 10 testimonies saying that that is your mother. And then you go through your whole life with 99% surety that that's your mom. Off of 10 testimonies. And you never got scientific proof. You never took your DNA and hers and put it under a microscope. You believe it. More than you believe science because you believe the testimony, which is valid. You should believe that. That's a great testimony. Now, what if I told you that we have over 10,000 testimonies of this man existing, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? 5 or 10 for your mom, 10,000 for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 10,000 individuals who lived in his time that are verified sayings and primary sources historically of this man existing. This is why today, all Orientalists all believe that this man existed, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 7th century in Arabia. So, this is the first thing. That of course, he existed. Now, who was this man? Everything I'm about to tell you is all verified, even by Orientalists. They all believe this common thread, that there was a man for 40 years named Muhammad who came and he was being born in Mecca and raised in this tribe. For 40 years, this man, he lived upright character, known as Al-Amin. He was trustworthy. No one claimed he was a liar. That he lived a life, and he was a shepherd. He was also a merchant. He lived in their society, coming from a noble tribe. And for 40 years, this man lives amongst his people. They know him. They eat with him. They share with him. They do trade with him. This is all agreed upon. And then at that 40-year mark, he claims, and I'm talking from a non-Muslim hat now, I'm just talking historically. From this 40-year age, he claims that an angel comes to him when he's meditating in a cave, and then this angel comes with so-called revelation from God. And it is at this point now, he becomes a messenger or a prophet of God. And that starting at that point, for 23 years, he is known as now calling himself a prophet and a messenger of God, receiving continuous revelation over 23 years in this compilation of the Quran. And after 23 years, he comes out with this revelation of a book that is 23 years, over 6,000 verses, 600 pages, in an oral tradition that he's completely memorized, and he's furnished this. This is it. All accepted that the Quran is associated with this man, Muhammad. And not only that, he was not known as a poet before. He was not known as someone with great literary speech. On top of that, he's illiterate, and he was an orphan. So these are all things that are accepted about his history. In that 23 years, he gains power, ends up building an empire, topples the Persian and the Romans, and sets up, and it gathers the entire Arabian Peninsula under his reign. This is what they accept. I'm not giving you the Muslim narrative. They understand that what he did in that time was insane. Even one of the Orientalists says in his book, the fact that this man comes after 40 years with the revelation and comes with this book and gathers all of these different tribes, gathers them in the Arabian Peninsula, becomes the ruler, comes with this revelation, takes over the Persians and the Romans, becomes the greatest empire of his time, is equivalent as today if the Eskimos in the North Pole came and overthrew America and Russia and became now the Eskimoian power of today. He says that is the equivalent. This is a non-Muslim. Do you understand how insane that was, that this man was able to achieve what he did? And so this is why even Orientalists say this is the greatest man to ever step on the face of this earth. All proven through historical facts. Here you have a book on the screen by Michael Hart. This is a man, a historian, a mathematician. He gathered a few other historians, and they said, let's compile the 100 most influential men ever in history. From the beginning of time all the way till today, let's gather historically with facts, as historians, the most influential man, the most profound man in history. Michael Hart, a Christian himself, in his preface when he's writing the book, I have the book at home, and I even highlighted it here. In the preface, he knows that he's going to get heat for this. He says, me as a Christian man, even though I would love for Jesus to be number one, there is no doubt that this man surpassed and wasn't even close second call, because Muhammad was a husband and Jesus was not. Muhammad was a father and Jesus was not. That Muhammad was a statesman and Jesus was not. And that Muhammad was a ruler and Jesus was not. And he goes, and Muhammad led military expeditions and Jesus did not. And he goes after, and he says, with my colleagues, it was a clear indication that this is the most influential. It wasn't even close. And in the preface he writes here, my choice of Muhammad to lead the list of the world's most influential persons may surprise some readers and may be questioned by others, but he was the only man in history who was supremely successful on both the religious and the secular level, meaning that not only did he inspire these people and call them to the oneness of God with the new revelation coming from the middle of the desert as an illiterate man with the most profound text that is studied by billions of people today. Even non-Muslims in Arabic are studying the language and understanding where this genre came from. Not only is he religiously, but secularly. You're talking about a man in the middle of the desert with no tribe, no power, no ruling, is able to gather all of these people, all these different tribes, gather the Arabian Peninsula and put them under his rule. How was he able to do that? And they look at his ability to run a country, his laws that come with the Quran, all of these things, and they cannot find anyone even close in history. So this is all just the prelude of who this man was. I'm not telling you Muslim identities. I'm not going through any ahadith or things like this. This is stuff, historical facts of who this man ﷺ was. So there's two things we'll highlight here. One is everyone agrees that at that age of 40, he claims that he received revelation from an angel in this cave that was revelation from God. And the second thing we'll say is that all Orientalists believe that this Quran that he comes and furnishes, and this Quran that is his product from him, according to them, it's his product, was always associated with Muhammad, meaning it wasn't from Abu Bakr, it wasn't from Umar. None of them disagree about that. They all know that it is this man, Muhammad, who the Quran is associated with. Okay? So these are the premises, these are all of the preludes that we take of who this man was. So, the question for us, this claim. This is the most important claim ever in human history. That what happened in that cave. What happened in that cave is the most important claim ever in history. Because it's the most important man. And so for us, was the claim true? That's what we have to identify. So essentially, what we could do here to prove it is we could set up a deductive argument. We could set up an argument to see, okay, was this claim true? And that's what we'll do right now. I'll stand up for this part. How a deductive argument works is essentially you have premises, and you come with your premise. If the premise is true, and all of the premises are true, then the conclusion follows. That's a deductive argument. So here we'll set up 3 premises, and from these premises, if all 3 of these true, then 100%, we cannot avoid the conclusion, okay? That's how a deductive argument works. So we'll start with the first one. The first premise, Muhammad ﷺ claims revelation from God. I already just gave you all the facts, and I showed you that this is something is already established as historical fact, that he claimed revelation from God. This is, no one debates it. Now, is that claim true or not? That's what we'll talk about. But no one debates the fact that he claimed he's seen Angel Jibreel and that he came out with this message. So, we've already confirmed this first premise. The second premise, there are only 4 possible explanations. So these are 4 possible explanations, and there's no other explanations about this claim that he made that he's receiving revelation. There could be 4 possibilities. The first one is he lied or he colluded, meaning he was working with someone and they were tricking people, and that he actually didn't see an angel, he was just making it up. This is the first possibility. So it's something that we will dig into. The second one is he was sincere, meaning he wasn't manipulating, he wasn't lying, but he was crazy, meaning that he really felt like himself that he was looking at an angel, and that angel was coming and giving him revelation. This is the second possibility, and it could be a possibility, and we'll look into that. The third is that he was sincere, and he actually did see, but what he was seeing was Satan and not Angel Jibreel. So this third one is an argument from Christians. Why? Because they already have the premise that Satan exists. So atheists really do not dabble in this one. The common Orientalists will usually go with number 2. And now even in modern day study of Islam, they won't even take number 1 because his life has so much historicity that proves that, yes, this man was sincere, and it doesn't seem like he would be a liar. So most atheists will go with B, but A is still a common choice, so we'll go over that. But the third one, he was sincere, meaning he actually felt like he was seeing Jibreel, but really that was Satan in disguise and tricking him so that way they can come off of Christ. And this is the Christian belief, right? We'll go into this as well. And then there's also a fourth possibility, which usually atheists and Christians don't even consider, is that what if he actually was seeing Angel Jibreel and he really was receiving revelation from God? That's a very common possibility too, and it could be. So if these are my 4 possibilities, and you can't come up with any possibilities outside of these 4, then let's move to the third premise. That 1, he didn't lie. 2, he wasn't crazy. And 3, he wasn't deceived. If that is true, then you cannot avoid the conclusion, which is he received revelation from God. Meaning, if I go through the elimination process and I get rid of A, B, and C, then D has to be true. Meaning I can't avoid it. And so what we're going to spend our time, because we already confirmed number 1, that's true. We confirmed number 2, unless you can come up with a possibility outside of these 4. But any possibility you come up with will be lumped into these 4. So these 2 are ironclad. Can't get rid of them. And if you have a challenge for them, I'd like to hear it after class. The third, this is what we need to prove now. So someone can come and say, okay, Azher, how are you going to prove that he didn't lie, he wasn't crazy, and that he wasn't deceived? What are your proofs for that? And so that is what we will explain today. We're going to go through each one of these and show you how the most possible and the most plausible explanation is D, that he received revelation from God by eliminating these 3. So this is what we'll start with today. The first one, was Muhammad ﷺ a liar? Okay, so if we want to examine was he a liar, the first thing we can look at is his motives. If someone lies, what would be the motives of someone lying? And there's some very obvious ones as being a prophet. Number 1, fame. You would become super famous if you really claim that you're a prophet. Number 2, wealth. This is very obvious. If you claim you're a prophet of God, and people, you can ask them to donate, and then you would become super rich. This is another motive. 3, women. In your society, if you're a prophet, you could get whoever you want. And you could get whatever, and you would be a prophet of God. And so this is another motive. And you can come up with multiple motives that if someone was lying, you would be able to find it in their character. So if these are things I would look for to prove someone's a liar, if there were examples that someone was not motivated by these things, it would prove the exact opposite, meaning that he didn't have motives to lie. The greatest example is if he was a liar, he was making this all up to become rich and wealthy and a prophet of his people and unite and have everyone under him. If he was doing that, was there ever an opportunity that these were presented to him? And he could have taken it without going through all of the struggle and being persecuted and doing these things. If he was actually motivated that, hey, I'm lying and I want these things, why would he put himself through struggle and going through 23 years of hardship to end up in the same spot if it was presented to him early? So the question is, was it ever presented to him? And we have historical narrations that in his early message, in the early messages, when he's coming up and saying, I'm getting revelation from God, and he's coming with the Quran, and he's coming with this message of one God, the people who hated him the most were the elite. And you still find that today. The elites hate Islam. Why? Because Islam challenges the social fabric of the society. And not only the social fabric, more importantly, the economical fabric. And still today, they hate Islam because we challenge their economical fabric. Pornography, $500 billion industry. Islam says wipe it out. Gambling, $1 trillion industry. Islam says wipe it out. Alcohol, $1 trillion industry. Islam says wipe it out. Look at all of the industries that are fueled in running the society, and Islam says all of it forbidden. Of course they don't want Islam. This is the same with every prophet that came. When the Prophet ﷺ presented Islam, the elites, they gathered, and they said, how can we let this man keep on going with this message? He's going to ruin our idol economy. Their entire economy system was made up of idols. So their number one interest was, let's stop this man. And the same way that the Orientals say that he was lying, this is what they're thinking. They're saying, you know what? Maybe he's just making this whole thing up because he wants wealth. Maybe he's doing it, he wants women. Maybe he wants fame. Maybe he wants to be a king. So what did they do? Early in his dawah, within the first 6 years, they said, we're tired of him going and preaching this message. He has a few followers. They're all being persecuted. They say, he's weak right now. Finally, let's get him to stop this message. Let's go and send him let's go send a representative from us, from the elite, from the Illuminati of Mecca, and offer him all of these things. So they come to him. Imagine if he's a false prophet, if he's just making it up. I want you to put yourself in his shoes. Imagine you're just making it up. You're saying, I seen an angel in the cave. I'm a prophet of God. And you want power. And it's only been 3 or 4 or 5 years. All your people that follow you are being dragged in the streets and persecuted. You have no power. You're about to be kicked out of your land. And finally, they come to you, the elites, and they give you a golden platter. They say, Ya Muhammad, you're harming our society with this message. If you just stop right now, we will give you all of the wealth. Whatever you want, just stop this message of Islam. This is like what's happening today. You want to support Palestine, you want to support Islam, just here's some money, shut up. This is what they're trying to do. Unfortunately today, people have wrong motives, so they take the money and they shut up. And this is the problem with our leaders. So they have the same intention. They're thinking, Muhammad ﷺ, just give him money. They say, we will organize. These are not even organized people in Mecca. They're like tribes, like the Native Americans. They're just a bunch of different tribes. They say, in order for you to stop this message, we are willing to unite. We'll gather all of our wealth. You can have half of our wealth as an entire Arabian Peninsula. Just stop this message. They say, if you want women, we will gather the most beautiful women, and you can pick whoever you want. We will divorce them tomorrow if you want them. They said, if you want fame, if you want to be a king, we are a dispersed people. But all of us have agreed that if you stop this message, we'll make you our king. You just cannot say La ilaha illallah. You need to stop this message. This thing that you're propagating about, what do you really want? You know, they're nudging him. What do you really want? We'll give you whatever. And they're thinking in their head, this guy's lying. He's just doing this to get famous. And the Prophet ﷺ, after hearing all of these, they're saying, if you want treatment, if you feel like you're sick, you feel like someone's bothering you, you're seeing hallucinations, we'll get the best doctors, we'll heal you. They literally put every motive for a liar, they put it right in front of his plate, and they're saying, just stop this message, we'll give it to you. If he was lying, this is the golden opportunity. Just take it, and that's it. You're done now. You got what you wanted. That's what you would expect from a liar. But what happens? And then his own uncle comes and starts to tell him, you know, this is a good deal they're giving you. This might be the last chance. And the Prophet ﷺ, he comes with the most unambiguous response that you could think of. That only a sincere person, this is why even Orientalists say that 100% he was sincere. He was sincere in his message. Whether he was true or not, maybe he was deceived, but he was sincere. Why? How does he respond to this? He tells his uncle, Wallahi, if they brought the sun down from the earth, and they put it in my right hand, and they brought the moon, and they put it in my left, I will never abandon this message until either I see it prevail, or they bury me and I'm dead. This is only the response of a sincere person in their message. He just got everything a liar would want, and he walks away from it. So this is a first piece of evidence that it shows that he's not lying. Second thing is, when someone's a liar, you can find in their history that they lied. This is why when we have politicians today, you get Joe Biden or anyone on there, and they come out and they give a statement. And we could go pull up 20 years ago, them saying the exact reverse statement. It's not an AI, it's not fake, it's not a deep fake of them. They literally are saying the exact opposite of what they were saying. Why? Because when someone lies, they have a history of lying. So let's say we go back and look at the life of Muhammad ﷺ. For those 40 years before he comes and he makes this lie about God, that he's getting the greatest lie of humanity, that he's getting revelation from God, was he a liar before? After 13 years, here's the example, prime example. 13 years the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca being persecuted, attacked, boycotted, him and his few followers, until eventually they made an assassination attempt against him. Finally, they said, that's the threat, we're going to just kill him. Let's just get rid of him. This is it. He's bothering our society too much. So they planned an assassination attempt. The Prophet ﷺ, when he escaped and finally got to Medina, he left his cousin. He left Ali in his house. The scholars say, why did he leave Ali in his house? So when they barge in, they see it's not Muhammad, they see Ali. Do you guys know why he left Ali? He left Ali because the same people that are outside of his house at night, in the middle of the night, planning to kill him, those same people, the Prophet ﷺ had to make sure that someone from his relatives was able to return the goods back to those people. What does that mean? Those same people that were planning to kill him, they trusted him so much that they used to, before he was a prophet, they used to give him their goods and say, you are Al-Amin, meaning his nickname before prophethood was the trustworthy one. They used to use him as a central bank. They said that this is the most trusty guy in our society. Let's go take our gold and our gatherings and give it to him and let him hold on to it. As they're fighting him, boycotting him, threatening him, trying to kill him, not once do any of them come back and say, you know what? You're kind of shady. Give me back my gold. They still kept it with him. So much so that even as they're trying to assassinate him, he puts his cousin there. So when they come back and he's like, peekaboo, it's me. It's not Muhammad ﷺ. Now, while you're here, let me give you back all your stuff because we're going to Medina. So he returns all of his things back to the same people trying to kill him. Is this the character of a liar? For 40 years, he doesn't lie. And even Heraclius, the Roman, when he sent him the letter, even Heraclius himself, he said, he asked Abu Sufyan, one of the greatest enemies of Islam at the time, he said, this so-called prophet of yours that's coming, do you know of him before this lie that he claims about God? Was he a liar before? Abu Sufyan says, I couldn't lie. I said, no, we never knew him as a liar. So Heraclius, the Roman emperor himself, says to him, he says, how could it be that for 40 years a man doesn't lie about human beings, but then he comes to a lie about God with the greatest lie known to mankind? How is that possible? Such a logical statement. We don't see him lie for 40 years, and now he's going to come with the biggest lie that humanity has ever seen. So obviously it shows that he's not lying. And now we'll even look at some of the facts in the historical. If he's lying, where is he getting this information? All these stories about these biblical people and they're being corrected and changed, and even when you find errors in the Bible or these biblical texts, these Israeliyat, the Quran takes that story, pulls out all of the filth. It's like a filter for truth. It takes all of the filth and all of the manipulations and all of the changes. It goes through the filter of God, and then you get it in a purified form in the Quran. That not only would he be plagiarizing it, but he would be correcting it. So the question is, where is he getting the source of information? Is there an Arabic Bible at the time? Right here you can see the earliest Arabic Bible that we have in a manuscript is 867, almost more than 100 years after his death. So where is he reading it from? Secondly, if it did exist, he can't read or write. So who is he copying this? Where is he getting this information from? If he's lying, is he colluding with someone? We only know one man that was there that he has interactions early with. This is Waraka bin Nawfal, and he shortly dies after the Prophet ﷺ. So even if it was Waraka, what about the rest of the 22 years? Where is he getting that revelation from? Where is he coming up with all of these things? And even Waraka, he didn't follow the exact type of Islam that the Prophet ﷺ came with. All these people that were following some type of loose Christianity or different type of Christianity is not the Islam we have today. So he's coming up with this massive thing, stealing from different books. I mean, this is their narrative. He's lying about this angel. He never lied about anything before, but he lies about this angel. And then he's continuing stealing books from an Israeliyat that he has no access to. He has no one in the Arabian Peninsula that has access to this information. But then if he did get access to that information, he's correcting it in things that he would have no way to know how to correct. This is what you would have to believe to say that he's a liar. And the last thing we'll say is negative examples. Is there an example that's a negative example? So there's positive examples that he lied, meaning I can prove to you that he lied. That would be a positive example. Is there a negative example? You know what a negative example is? I'll give you one, and then we'll end this last piece with this, of him being a liar. And it's one of the most clear proofs. The Prophet ﷺ, he lost his son Ibrahim. When Ibrahim was young, about 18 months, young child, he passed away. And on the date that he passed away, his son, imagine he loved his son, he played with him. 18 is a beautiful age too, because they start to interact with you, they play with you. I have almost a 2-year-old daughter. This is the most beautiful, tender age. They start to talk to you. He's devastated. He lost his son. And as he lost his son, they look up into the sky, and there's a solar eclipse on the day that he died. A solar eclipse on the day that your son dies, all the light stops. I mean, think about how symbolic that is. The light from the earth stopped the day that you lost your son. Lineage is cut off after this. That's the last son he'll bury. And the light stops from the earth. Like, if you're a liar, this is the perfect time to cook up, like, look at what a quinkadink, you know? Like, look at what happened when my son died. If I was a liar, this is like a golden opportunity for me. Not only that, I'll make it worse. The people around him, they look up in the sky, and he doesn't even have to lie. They start to say, look at how the sun is even grieving for Muhammad. Look at how the sun is upset because he lost his child. So the people are already saying the rumor. He doesn't even have to think it. If he was a liar, you would be like, yeah, you know, crazy, right? I really am a prophet. I told you. Wouldn't you be like that? Even if you didn't have the idea and they're saying it, just remain quiet then. Don't even correct them. Just be like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That was for my son. I'm a prophet. Now follow me and, you know, do everything I say now. That's what you would expect from a liar. But the last thing you would expect from a liar is an opportunity like this is given to prove that you're a prophet of God. That you tell the same people saying that, you say no. Which he does. He says, no, don't say that. The sun and the moon are on their own orbit, and they don't change for anyone. They don't change for my son's death or anyone else's death or anything that I do. He says, this is a coincidence. Can you imagine if he was a liar, how stupid that would be? That you had a golden opportunity, you go out of your way to tell them. Only someone who would do that was someone who feared that people would start to associate that with him. So he has to go right away and say, no, Allah didn't reveal that. I can't say that. I cannot do that. That's someone who's sincere, getting revelation from God. And they're saying, no, that was actually a coincidence. Like, he's a prophet of God, crazy things happen, miracles happen. This is not one of them, even though it seems like it. That's what we call a negative example. And there's siras filled with these. Many times you would expect him, if he was a liar, to take advantage. He doesn't. And you think, wow, this has to be a messenger of God. Because if you were a liar, you would have totally exploited that. So, with all of these evidences, there are many more of this. There's a 3.5-hour video proving he's not a liar. I give you some of these. You can find it on Hamza's Den. He does an interview. It's 3.5 hours proving just one point, that Muhammad was not a liar. So, with that ample evidence, we can move on to the next, and you can do more research if you want. So what do we do here? We cross out number 1. He didn't lie. We move on to the next things. Okay, if we know he didn't lie, maybe he was crazy, as they claim. Maybe he was actually seeing an angel, and that really wasn't an angel. Maybe he was hallucinating. Maybe he thought he was seeing an angel. Maybe he wasn't lying intentionally, but he actually thought he was seeing an angel. So the question is, can we look at his life and evaluate, okay, was he actually crazy? So the common theme that they will attribute with Muhammad ﷺ is schizophrenia, because they say he was having these hallucinations, that he was seeing these things, that he was just struggling with schizophrenia, and this is why he thought he really believed in it, and he was coming up with these things. So we can evaluate. And there's another 3.5-hour video by a medical professional, a Muslim medical professional. He goes through a 3.5 video proving that the Prophet ﷺ did not have any mental illness, not psychosis, not schizophrenia, not epilepsy. And he proves all of this. I'm going to just give you a few of them. This is all from the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is what we have as like our modern mental health guidebook of mental diseases, okay? So they say if someone has schizophrenia, like if Muhammad ﷺ had schizophrenia, we would notice some signs in his life. We would notice some behavior of schizophrenia, okay? Here's a few of them that I listed. The thing you have to also know about schizophrenia, it's on a spectrum. And some people could be very high functioning, some people could be very low functioning. Another thing to realize is if it's untreated, it only gets worse over time, it never gets better. Untreated, so you're saying that Muhammad ﷺ, 7th century, obviously there's no treatment for it. You're saying that he's an untreated schizophrenic, that he is dealing with this. So what we should see then, if I examine his life, is I should see these symptoms, but to the highest degree. Because he's untreated. He would be mentally insane. He would not be able to function without having these symptoms displayed in his life. So the question is, can we see this in his life? The first one, incoherent speech. That if someone is schizophrenic, the first thing you would start to notice is incoherent speech, meaning that they would start to string together words that make absolutely no sense. That they would still use sentence structure, but the words would have no meaning. So you would say apple, blueberry, went to the store to buy an apple, and then made a pie, and then, like it would make no sense. That is what you would witness, and should get worse and worse and worse. The last thing you would see is someone coming out with a 600-page book that even the most eloquent speakers of the time could not fathom how this man is coming up with this eloquent speech. That people would hear one verse and they would convert because it is so eloquent. That's the last thing you would see, but that is what we witness when we study his life. Not only that, you would not have a man that's able to talk and give dawah and go to leaders and groups of people and talk in such a beautiful way. Here I have a narration about the description of the Prophet ﷺ. And in your free time, you should look at it when I send these slides. Here you have Ma'bad, which is a woman who the Prophet ﷺ stopped by her. This is all narrated in an authentic hadith, an authentic narration. He's traveling through the middle of the desert. He stops at a house. He stops there with Abu Bakr for a little bit. They meet this woman, and they have this exchange with her. She ends up feeding them. And then he leaves her. Maybe he spends an hour there, and then he leaves. This woman gives us one of the most detailed descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Like she was interacting with him, and she starts to describe her to her husband. One of the key things I highlighted here, she says, when he spoke, he was eminent and crowned with magnificence. His speech was sweet, his words were precise, neither too little nor too much, like a string of pearls flowing down gradually. She says his words were like a string. Imagine you have beads falling, free falling. Every bead would fall exactly to the rate of gravity, one by one by one by one. It wouldn't be like me right now flying and talking fast. Sometimes I talk fast. Sometimes I talk slow. Sometimes you see a monotone speaker. But the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke, it was perfectly. And every single Sahaba, when they talk about his description, they say he never said too much and he never said too little. It was like perfect. The Goldilocks, it was right there in the middle, just right. That was his speech. So where's the incoherent speech? Where's the random sentences? Where's the hadith that I can read and be like, what the hell does that mean? You won't find one. Even some scholars say there's over hundreds of thousands of hadith. We don't have one of incoherency. Where is it? So this is obviously not someone who is untreated schizophrenia or any type of untreated psychosis, disordered thinking, that they're not able to think straight, or let alone run an entire nation of people for 23 years, withdrawing socially. Do you know the Prophet ﷺ, how many times he had to go and talk to the greatest leaders of a tribe by himself? He would have to go by himself and go talk and give dawah. We get nervous for a presentation, hands start shaking, we have to talk to our boss. This man had to go and preach the message of God to all of these random people. Do you find an untreated schizophrenia having that courage, that motivation to go and do that with these people, to be able to deliver it, and then people accept it, and to follow him, to have the entire Arabian Peninsula? Is this what you would expect? Decline in self-care and cleanliness. The Prophet ﷺ said, cleanliness is half your deen. He used to be very well kept, took care of himself. Lack of motivation. Not someone who's going to turn this Bedouin peninsula into the greatest empire of the world. The Prophet ﷺ, a statesman, a father, a husband to many, taking care of his children, washing his house, cleaning, in the streets, teaching people about the Quran, leading an army, discharging them, leading battalions, setting up laws, doing court, doing all of these things in a day, and at night praying 4 to 5 hours a night. Does this sound like a lack of motivation? Someone that's crazy? These are things that you have to think about. We would witness all of these throughout his life. Difficult day-to-day function. So obviously with all of these things, and you could dive more into this, you can obviously see from this that he was not an untreated schizophrenic, epilepsy, or any type of psychosis. This is someone who was very well thought. And all of his contemporaries understood that about him. So if we get to this where he wasn't crazy, he didn't lie, then we'll get to the last thing here, and that he wasn't deceived. So we'll go through this kind of quickly because I do want to cover some of these other things. This is two very easy things for the Christians who say, okay, you know what? Maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe he didn't lie, but that was Satan coming in the form of Jibril. There's two things you can easily refute this with. Very easy. The number one was, if Satan had a bunch of pagan Arabs worshiping idols, why would he send himself to come bring the oneness of God to those people? If they're already off of the path, if I'm Satan and I have a bunch of people worshiping to idols, do you think that I would send myself to them and be like, hey, instead of these idols, worship one God? And by the way, Jesus, he actually was a messenger. You should start reviling him and put him in high regard. And Mary, no, she actually was a virgin. And start to bring back all of the things that even are in the core concepts of Christianity. Would Satan do that? It makes no sense. Why would these people are already off? They're the furthest. They're pagans. They're worshiping idols. Why would Satan do that? So this is something that it obviously doesn't make sense. The second thing is that he himself is saying, seek refuge from Satan. You know, they say Satan's number one trick is he doesn't want you to think he exists. This is why atheists are his number one target, because they don't think he exists. So he's like, my job with you is done. I can play with you all I want. For these people, why would Satan come and teach people to say, hey, seek refuge in Satan? There's a Satan out there. He's after you. He's an enemy. Why would he be arming you against himself? This is just easy logic you can make yourself out of this to understand that he wasn't deceived. Okay, so we don't have time to go through a lot of these slides. So what we're going to do here, because we're getting to the end, is we're going to watch a video, and inshallah we'll conclude with that. So I'll just mention briefly, this is his precise predictions. He actually predicts how long his prophethood is going to be. This is a hadith, but you can look through this through the slides. Unfortunately, we're not able to go through it. I have some narrations here of prophetic character that unfortunately we're not going to be able to go through that would prove that only he was a prophet, just by his character alone. And unfortunately, we just don't have the time. And then the last thing I'll mention here is some of his fulfilled prophecies. So just like the Quran has prophecies, the Prophet ﷺ used to narrate certain prophecies, and that's what we'll just watch here, and we'll conclude shortly after that. So we'll just watch this together.